Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started. Afghanistan is changing. 20 years of war and American presence is ending. A new war is beginning. The Taliban is taking control of the country. It's a reality that India has to contend with. Afghanistan is critical to India's regional strategy. Afghanistan is home to major Indian investments, diplomatic, economic and cultural. And now Afghanistan is set to fall in the hands of the Taliban. The Taliban has always been hostile to India. It has been supported by Pakistan's ISI. So as American forces leave and the Taliban take control, what will become of Indian assets? Is engaging with the Taliban India's only option? Unfortunately, it is. By most accounts, New Delhi is already talking to them. But what will be the shape of this engagement? Has the Taliban changed in these 2 decades? How does India see it, and how does the Taliban see India now? What can New Delhi leverage to protect its gains and friends in Afghanistan? These are all difficult questions, and India's situation, frankly, is not ideal. On Gravitas tonight, we'll bring you up to speed with what's happening and where things are heading. Also on the show, a bomb blast in Pakistan right outside the house of Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. He's in jail, or is he? We'll bring you a special report. Is China trying to hack India's defense ministry? A Chinese national recently arrested in West Bengal spells out the targets of Chinese cyber attackers. Can unhappy marriages be fatal? Apparently as much as smoking. We bring you the stunning findings of a new report. And in Nicaragua, if you want to go to jail, just file a presidential nomination. 5 leaders who wanted to run for president have been put behind bars. We'll tell you what's happening there. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
The Indian government has flagged the Delta Plus strain of COVID-19 as a variant of concern, as more than 40 cases were recorded. The government has directed the states of Maharashtra, Kerala and Madhya Pradesh to implement immediate containment measures. The White House says the U.S. is likely to miss President Biden's goal of giving at least 1 dose of a COVID-19 jab to 70% of adults by July 4th.
We are expected to meet that goal just a couple weeks after July 4th.
The statement came as the top infectious disease expert in the United States, Dr. Anthony Fauci, said that the Delta variant was the greatest threat to the country's pandemic response. One of the leading critics of Beijing in Hong Kong, the Apple Daily newspaper, has been forced to shut down after its executives were arrested and millions of dollars of assets frozen by authorities. The closure is being seen by China in its bid to exert greater control. IT advisor Ajit Doval attended a meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Dushanbe, in Tajikistan. Pakistan's NSA Mueed Yusuf was also present for the meet. However, no meeting has been set up between the 2 officials. The SCO meet comes months after India and Pakistan began talks to defuse tensions. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has come under fire for his misogynistic comments, blaming women's clothing for the rise of sexual assault in the country. Opposition leaders and netizens have slammed the leader for his comments and have demanded an apology. Further straining US-Iran ties, the US government has seized dozens of website domains connected to Iran in an apparent bid to crack down on disinformation. The US says these websites, disguised as were trying to subvert the US democratic process. In what appears to be another setback for China, a Swedish court upholds a ban on telecom giant Huawei Technologies selling 5G equipment in the country. The move follows Stockholm's decision to bar the company in October last year because of security concerns cited by Sweden's intel services. 13 of the European Union's 27 member states have voiced a grave concern
the Hungarian bill is a shame
at Hungary's new law for discriminating against the LGBTQ community. The law bans education for children that it deems promotes homosexuality or gender change. A joint statement slams the law as a breach of the LGBTQ community's right to dignity. World Cup finalists Croatia have secured progress to the Euro 2020 knockouts with a thrilling 3-1 victory over Scotland in Glasgow. Nikola Vlasic's 16th-minute opener was cancelled out by Scotland's Callum McGregor, but goals from Luka Modric and Ivan Perisic in the second half sealed the win. Meanwhile, England advanced as Group D toppers with Raheem Sterling's lone goal enough to beat Czech Republic in London. The countdown to the Tokyo Olympic Games have entered the last 30 days. Organizers today announced a series of curbs for the limited number of fans who will be permitted to attend, including a ban on alcohol inside Games venues, no high fives or talking in loud voices. A decision on whether fans will be allowed at night sessions will be taken on July 12th, when virus curbs are due to be eased in Tokyo.
Tonight we start with Afghanistan, a country that does not share a border with India but has immense strategic and cultural significance for India. Afghanistan has seen 20 years of war. India helped rebuild it. Now the Americans are leaving and the Taliban are gaining ground. So India is exploring its options. To remain relevant in Afghanistan, India must engage with the Taliban. What will be the meaning of the shift for New Delhi? Does it have any other options? Tonight we'll discuss this, and for that we must first understand how much power the Taliban already wields. Afghanistan, you see, has 387 odd districts. Since the beginning of May, the month of May, the Taliban has taken control of more than 50 of them. This is what the United Nations Security Council was told last night, 50 districts in a month and a half. Overall, the Taliban control 133 districts. That's more than 34% of the country. It's a worrying trend. But this story cannot be told just through numbers. Districts are falling without a fight. Afghan security forces are surrendering to the Taliban. They're being paid off by Taliban commanders. Military bases are being destroyed. And the Taliban is seizing the weapons that should be in the hands of the Afghan forces. And we are not making any of this up. We have all of this on tape. Tonight on Gravitas, we'll show you 5 videos. They prove how Afghanistan is falling to the Taliban. Video number 1 is from Ghezab. It's a district in the central Uruzgan province of Afghanistan. On your screen are Taliban fighters, members of the Taliban. They overpowered the forces on the ground. They claim that more than 100 soldiers surrendered here. The Taliban seized a massive cache of weapons, ammunition and military gear. A military chopper can be seen in the area with the rest of the weapons. This video was released by the press division of the Taliban themselves. Just see for yourself how the local forces were cornered.
مجاهدین دي مخصوص توصيبات المجاهدين دي
The Taliban is operating with impunity, without fear of a counterattack. That's because American forces are leaving. Video number 2 is from Char Dara, another district that the Taliban recently took control of. You can see the Taliban walking the streets with guns. Char Dara is one of the 7 districts of the Kunduz province. Reports say the Taliban has now captured 6 out of 7 districts in this province. The entire province could soon fall into their hands. What's even more alarming is that several districts, in many of these districts, Afghan forces have surrendered without a fight. And this is video number 3. The exact location of the surrender is not clear. But here, soldiers from the Afghan forces can be seen clearly giving up their arms. They hand over their guns to the Taliban. Watch this.
Alhamdulillah, that all commandant and all asked. Alhamdulillah, all tang. Alhamdulillah, damn. Dar bekan all mashad commandant. Alhamdulillah, taslim su. Alhamdulillah. Mushtan nisi bigham bashi. Alhamdulillah, the urdu tangan. Alhamdulillah, urdu commandant. Alhamdulillah, all ral taslim su. Alhamdulillah. Damn. Mushman tangan.
Something similar played out in the Wardak province too. That's video number 4. 16 soldiers are said to have surrendered to the Taliban here. In this clip, you can see a Taliban commander. He's handing out cash, $60 in local currency, to each soldier to go home. It's not just soldiers. Entire military bases are falling to the Taliban. Video number 5 is from Kandahar. The Taliban is said to have entered a military base here and completely destroyed military vehicles. Reports say that a tunnel bomb was detonated here, and once again the Taliban can be seen taking control of the streets. And this is largely the pattern, though in some cases Afghan forces have tried to take back some of the districts. Afghanistan, as I told you, has 387 districts. Out of these, 86 are either under the control of the government or undetermined, meaning an assessment of these districts is yet to be conducted. 133 of these districts are under the Taliban's control. This includes the districts that they have seized since the month of May. 179 districts are contested, meaning the Afghan government claims to control them, but the Taliban has a huge presence and holds sway over large parts. They're expanding their turf with more attacks. These 5 videos are proof of how quickly they're making gains. The latest United Nations report says the Taliban could be in total control outside urban Afghanistan. It says the Taliban contests or controls anywhere between 50 to 70% of the non-urban territory. And they're making gains every day. The Americans have slowed down troop withdrawal, but it's only a matter of time before they leave. And only a matter of time, it seems, before Afghanistan falls completely in the hands of the Taliban. And all of this, the Taliban's charge, puts India in a tough spot. They aren't some ragtag insurgents anymore. They're rulers in waiting. So ignoring the Taliban is not an option. Neither is embracing them. Then what should India do? Strike a delicate diplomatic balance, put practical thinking over traditional approach. The first step is making sense of what is happening. Who does the American troop withdrawal benefit? The Taliban clearly sees this as a victory. As they say, insurgents don't have to win, they only have to survive. And that's exactly what the Taliban did. Survived the American onslaught for 20 years. And now the road to Kabul is open. Question is, have they changed? The Taliban of 2021 is not the Taliban of 1996. Today, their spokesmen dish out polished English. They travel the world. They tweet from their fancy smartphones. The Taliban's methods have clearly changed. But what about their worldview? Well, not so much. They still don't support democracy. They still carry out terror attacks. They still oppose educating girls. So hoping for a Taliban renaissance is wishful thinking. They're still hardcore Islamists. with conservative notions. What's worse, they're a lot more experienced now. In 1996, you see, they were disorganized, they were largely clueless. They were built to fight, not to govern. And Pakistan used this to their advantage. But today's Taliban does not need foreign help. Their political and military wings are separated. They've been running shadow ministries for 2 decades. So this new Taliban will not be a Pakistani stooge. They're more than capable of running a government, albeit an oppressive one. Where does this leave India? New Delhi has 2 broad objectives in Afghanistan. On Tuesday, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar spelled them out at the United Nations Security Council. Listen to this.
Any political settlement in Afghanistan must ensure that the gains of the last 2 decades are protected and not reversed. It should, therefore, preserve the constitutional democratic framework and ensure the protection of the rights of women, children, and minorities. For enduring peace in Afghanistan, terrorist safe havens and sanctuaries must be dismantled immediately and terrorist supply chains disrupted. There needs to be zero tolerance for terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including its cross-border one.
Protecting the gains made since 2001, liberating Afghanistan from terrorism. These are 2 stated objectives of India. A Taliban takeover makes both of them impossible. So what are India's options? Should New Delhi be talking to the Taliban? Reports say it already is. Minister Jaishankar visited Doha twice this month. Why is this important? Because Afghanistan may be the battleground, but Doha is the power center. This is where the Taliban runs its political office. Jaishankar met with Qatar's foreign minister and American envoy Zalmay Khalilzad. But was there a meeting with the Taliban? A senior Qatari diplomat says there was. And I'll give you some context. Qatar's special envoy Mutlaq bin Majid Al-Qahtani was attending a webinar on the Afghan peace process. He was asked about India's role in Afghanistan, and this was his reply.
I understand that there has been a quiet visit by Indian officials to India to speak with the Taliban. Why? Because not everybody is believing that Taliban will dominate and take over, but because Taliban is a key component of or should be, or is going to be a key component of the future Afghanistan.
India has not confirmed this, but India's outreach to the Taliban is tentative, and rightly so. There are no indications that they have changed. So what can India do? How can India strike a partnership without befriending the Taliban? A relationship of convenience is a possibility. Let me explain this. India has invested $3 billion in Afghanistan. It is willing to invest a lot more. So if the Taliban comes to power, it will need Indian funds. Keeping Afghanistan impoverished and underdeveloped is not an option. The people have tasted prosperity, the possibilities of a good life. And to deliver this prosperity, the Taliban is going to need India. And this gives New Delhi some wiggle room. But India's outreach is a two-way street. What can the Taliban give India in return? At the very least, assurances. Let me pull up a Taliban statement that was released earlier today, and this is what it says. We assure all neighboring countries of Afghanistan that no problems shall arise with the arrival of Mujahideen to border regions. Good relations shall be maintained as before, and no obstructions shall be created for border movement. They're already talking to Afghanistan's neighbors with these statements. It's an encouraging statement nonetheless, but India cannot take the Taliban on face value. It must explore strategies to contain them at the same time. One option is to use partners to bring pressure to the Taliban, whether it's Russia or Iran. Think of it as an indirect leverage, a regional axis to keep the Taliban in check. The next couple of months are going to be crucial for Afghanistan. The way things are going, a violent takeover cannot be ruled out. India will be watching closely and bracing for some tough calls. Which way will New Delhi go? Will realpolitik trump principles? Watch this space for updates. For the moment, we'll talk about what's happening in Pakistan. Something absolutely bizarre happened today. There was a terror attack outside the residence of a terrorist. Seems like someone took work from home too seriously. Jokes aside, this is what happened. The terrorist in question is none other than Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. And this afternoon, a car bomb went off outside Saeed's residence. Pakistan says foreign forces and hostile intelligence agencies were behind this blast. But the timing of the attack tells an entirely different story. Here's a report.
This is the Johar Town neighborhood in Lahore, a high-end locality where Pakistan's elite and powerful reside. Including this man, Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. On Wednesday afternoon, a terror attack struck this locality. A powerful bomb went off right outside the residence of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa chief. The exact nature of the blast still remains unclear. But eyewitness accounts suggest that the explosives were planted in a car, which was parked near a police picket outside Hafiz Saeed's house. A remote control device was used to set off the explosives. They ripped through at least 50 houses and killed 3 people. 20 others have been left critically injured. And a 3 feet wide crater has emerged at the site of the blast.
At least 3 people have died in this heinous act of terror, whereas another 25 are injured. The blast took place near the house of Hafiz Saeed. The police were the target. This has been confirmed by the Inspector General of Police in Punjab, Inam Ghani, while speaking to the media as well. The initial investigation report has been submitted, and out of those who are injured, out of the 24 who are injured, at least 8 are said to have been critical.
So who was the target? Nobody knows. The man who lives right opposite the blast site is currently behind bars. 71-year-old Hafiz Saeed is serving a jail sentence at the Kot Lakhpat prison in Lahore over terror financing charges. But the incident has sparked rumours that Saeed was present inside the house. A statement by the Punjab police chief further adds to the mystery. In a reference to Saeed, IG Inam Ghani has said, "There could have been a major loss had there been no police picket outside the house of the high-profile personality." What sort of loss? This the chief of police did not answer. Another question that remains unanswered is, who was behind the blast? So far, nobody has claimed responsibility. But the Punjab police, without taking any names, has said that hostile intelligence agencies could be behind it, and that the explosives used were foreign in nature. What exactly the police is hinting at is anybody's guess. But the timing of the explosion tells a different story altogether. It comes right ahead of a FATF decision on Pakistan's role in terror financing. The Financial Action Task Force is set to deliver its verdict on whether Islamabad stays on its grey list or gets out of it. In the last 12 years, Pakistan has been placed on the grey list 3 times. Another grey listing could serve a death blow to the country's economy, because it will become difficult for Pakistan to secure any financial aid from the IMF or the World Bank, even the European Union. The global watchdog's decision will be announced in 48 hours. Until then, here's a question that many observers are asking. Could this attack be Pakistan's plan to pin the blame for terror on foreign forces and get away with concessions from the FATF? If it is, the planning is awfully poor, because a terror attack outside a terrorist house may not really help its case. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
It's a well-established fact. Terrorists like Hafiz Saeed are proxies of the Pakistani state. They do the dirty work for Islamabad and Rawalpindi by attacking India and Indian interests. And now it looks like the Chinese state is adopting the same strategy. It could be deploying hackers to target India. Recently, a Chinese national was arrested from the Indian state of West Bengal. Turns out he was a man on a mission. His job was to hack various websites of the government of India, including India's Ministry of Defence, a Bengaluru-based company that has been linked to India's Defence Ministry, state telecom company BSNL, also a couple of aerospace companies. Now note the pattern and you'll understand the motive. Apparently, Chinese hackers are trying to get inside India's defence system, get a peek inside the defence system. So was this a state-sponsored cyber attack? Well, at the moment, there's no proof. But there's strong reason to believe that the Chinese state is waging a cyber war against India. Recently, Recorded Future, the world's largest provider of intelligence for enterprise security, published a report. And it claims that 3 Indian aerospace and defence contractors and BSNL were the target of Chinese hackers. And these are the same targets that this Chinese national held in India has also named. So who are these hackers? Not some geeks hiding in remote basements in Beijing. They're allegedly members of the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese army. They could be using hackers against India. Experts have identified a hacker group that goes by the name of REDFOXTROT. It has been linked to Unit 69010 of the People's Liberation Army. This unit is believed to be a part of China's military intelligence apparatus. This is what cyber warfare looks like, and there's now evidence to show that the Chinese state is actively engaging in it. Last year, at the height of the border tension between India and China, the Chinese state was allegedly behind several attempted cyber attacks. They targeted 10 Indian power sector assets, 2 ports, assets in the oil and gas sector, and the Indian railways. And it's not just India that is on target here. Reports say the same hacker group, REDFOXTROT, has been active since 2014. And since then, it has targeted defense, government, telecommunications, mining and research organizations across Central and South Asia. Its presence has been detected in Afghanistan, in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. So by targeting India again, Beijing is sending a message. It has no intention of de-escalating tensions with New Delhi, both in cyberspace as well as on the border. The PLA has stepped up its deployments across the border. 2 air bases have been upgraded in Tibet. They're just across the line of actual control in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh. The PLA has deployed Chinese versions of the S-400 missile defense systems. Why does China want so many weapons on the border with India? Well, China's wolf warrior-in-chief Zhao Lijiang was asked about this today. He did not answer the question. Instead, he accused India of border intrusions.
China's military deployment in the western section of the China-India border is a normal defense arrangement aimed at preventing and responding to the encroachment and threats of the relevant country on Chinese territory. For a long time, India has continued to increase its military deployment on the China-India border area and has repeatedly crossed the line to erode Chinese territory. This is the root cause of the border tension between China and India. China has always called for the peaceful settlement of the border issue through negotiation and does not support linking the border issue with bilateral relations.
India and China have been locked in a border standoff for more than a year now. But the tensions between them are no longer just about what happened in Ladakh. Beijing is doubling down its military deployments across the line of actual control. It is targeting Indian assets in the cyberspace. So we'll repeat what we've been saying. India needs a 360-degree response to Chinese aggression. Now, if you're a tech buff, you'll be aware that Google is having a really terrible week. The tech giant is facing a string of antitrust probes and lawsuits in different parts of the world. In America, several state attorneys general are all set to file an antitrust lawsuit against Google. This is for monopolizing its Play Store on Android phones. In Europe, the EU is probing Google's misuse of power in the online ad market. And in India, an investigation has been launched by the country's antitrust body. It is probing if Google is misusing its position in the smart TV market. I know that's a lot to keep track of. So we've simplified a few things here. Some questions surrounding these developments. What explains these antitrust lawsuits and investigations? And how much trouble is Google in? Here's a report.
Let's begin with some basics. What is an antitrust lawsuit? It's simply a form of legal action brought against parties who are charged with limiting free competition in the market. In simpler words, such lawsuits prevent companies from creating a monopoly. And who knows better about building monopolies than big tech? The likes of Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Twitter. They've all faced antitrust lawsuits in the past. The latest addition could be Google. In the United States, a group of state attorney generals are planning to file a lawsuit against Google as early as next week. What triggered this? Numerous complaints, primarily from app developers who accuse the tech giant of mismanaging its Play Store at their expense. This includes apps like Spotify and Tinder, which have time and again slammed Google for demanding mandatory revenue sharing. Over the years, a plethora of antitrust complaints have been filed by many such apps. A lawsuit too has been in the works for years, and after much delay, it finally seems to be close again. So what exactly is this lawsuit about? According to reports, it will primarily focus on two clauses that Google is said to be misusing. One, making it mandatory for some apps to use Google's payment tools to sell subscription. And two, making the same app share as much as 30% of their sales with Google. Why is this lawsuit such a big deal? Because it's going to be a bipartisan effort, involving both the Democratic and Republican parties together looking into the monopolistic powers of Google. It is unclear how many states will participate, but the case is likely to be filed in Northern California, with the Attorney Generals of Utah, Tennessee, North Carolina, and New York leading the investigation. The trial may only take place in 2022, and Google is already defiant. A Google spokesperson has said, Android is the only major operating system that allows people to download apps from multiple app stores. In fact, most Android devices ship with 2 or more app stores pre-installed. They can also install additional app stores or apps directly from their browser if they choose. Now, as the search giant awaits a setback in its home country, thousands of miles away in Europe, it has already suffered one. Antitrust authorities in the European Union have opened a formal investigation into Google's role and functioning in the online ad market. According to the EU, the probe will assess whether Google has violated the EU's competition rules by favoring its online advertising technology and hurting competition. The probe will try to find out if Google is restricting user data access to third parties and reserving such data for its own advertising purposes. The next challenge will be in India. The Competition Commission of India, the country's antitrust watchdog, has ordered an investigation into allegations that Google has abused the dominant position of Android in India's smart TV market. The Commission has said, and I quote, "By making pre-installation of Google's apps for all Android devices manufactured by device manufacturers, Google has reduced the ability and incentive of device manufacturers to develop and sell devices operating on alternative versions of Android." The concerns are not manufactured. In 2019, 8 million smart TVs were sold in India, out of which 60% were powered with Google's Android operating system. Why was this operating system installed? Was it in compliance with India's laws? The probe will find out. From America to the European Union and India, it's been a tough week for Google. And the days ahead don't look any better. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The world wants to visit Xinjiang. They want to see for themselves what China is doing to the Uyghur Muslims, how a ruthless regime has enslaved its minority. There's just one problem here. China is in no mood to open the gates. Beijing has responded with rejection and propaganda. The demand was first made by Michelle Bachelet. She is the United Nations Human Rights Chief. She proposed a visit to Xinjiang later this year. Now, such inspections are not unheard of, but China saw red. Xinjiang is their worst-kept secret. Letting observers in would bust Chinese propaganda. But how long can they resist? 41 countries have joined the United Nations demand. They want independent observers to visit Xinjiang. They want immediate and unfettered access to the Uyghur camps.
We urge China to allow immediate, meaningful, and unfettered access to Xinjiang for independent observers, including the High Commissioner, and to urgently implement the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination's 8 recommendations related to Xinjiang, including by ending the arbitrary detention of Uyghurs and members of other Muslim minorities.
Among these 41 countries was Israel. Why is this noteworthy? Because this is a major policy shift for them. Until now, Israel has steered clear of Xinjiang. They did not want to upset a major business partner like China. But this time, they voted for a United Nations inspection, most likely under pressure from the US. Either way, it shows how broad the anti-China coalition is. China's response to this request was hardly surprising, though. The whole world knows what goes on in these camps: forced sterilization, forced labor, human experiments, state-sponsored rape. And none of this is a secret, even though China keeps denying it. So technically, this was Beijing's golden chance. If it has nothing to hide, nothing to fear, why not let observers visit? If Xinjiang is indeed paradise on earth, the observers would give China a clean chit. But we all know it isn't. And by denying permission, China has indicted itself. This is what Beijing told the human rights body. Come for a friendly visit, not to probe allegations. How convenient is that? UN observers do not visit countries for leisure. This is not a holiday plan. They want a fact-finding mission. And some of those facts will likely hurt China, which is why they're opposing it.
The remarks made by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights on Xinjiang-related issues are gravely inconsistent with facts. At present, Xinjiang enjoys social stability and economic prosperity, where people live and work in peace, and all ethnic groups have their human rights fully guaranteed.
That's what China would like you to believe. Xinjiang is a place where people live and work in peace, where everyone's rights are protected by the regime. It's a falsehood, one that China is pushing hard with its propaganda machine. Tonight we'll tell you how this machine works. How are propaganda videos made? And how are they telecast to the world? Well, most of them are shot as selfie videos or in close range. This makes it appear like a personal account, like a social media rant. But the content is fully scripted. Everything that is being said is vetted and approved by the Communist Party. There are also some common phrases and expressions. The New York Times recently investigated more than 3,000 propaganda videos. This is what they found. The phrase "complete nonsense" featured in 600 of them. The delivery is assertive. The idea is to reflect the anger of a wronged resident. Well, here's another common feature. All these videos are subtitled. It seems strange for social media rants to be subtitled. We've all seen selfie videos on Twitter and Facebook. How many of them have subtitles? These videos are processed by the regime before being released. They're not meant for Chinese locals. They're meant for the world, which is why the Mandarin is completely subtitled so that you can understand what is being said. The final step in propaganda is publishing it. China has a well-oiled machine for this. Such videos first emerge on Communist Party apps. One example is the pomegranate cloud. It is owned and operated by the party. From here, the videos jump to Chinese social media, the likes of Weibo and TikTok, and from there to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's a seamless process designed to hide the biggest human rights violation of the 21st century. The world has seen enough of these selfie videos. We can distinguish reality from communist propaganda. Well, some of it is so dramatized, it's laughable. The only way to settle the Xinjiang debate is an inspection, and China's denial must be perceived as its guilt. Unhappy marriages can be fatal. Unhappy marriages can also result in strokes, even death by ill health. I'm not prophesying this. I'm referring to a study carried out in Israel. This is what it says. Unhappy marriages can increase death rate in men by 19%. The study was conducted on men aged 40 and above. Nearly 9,000 men were sampled. All of them were either civil servants or municipal employees. They were asked to record the degree to which they were satisfied with their marriage. How happy were they? They were given a scale of 1 to 4. 1 is very happy, very successful, and 4 being in an unsuccessful marriage. And this study lasted for 32 years. 64% of the participants died by the end of it. 6.7% died from a stroke. So this is what the researchers found. For those who were least satisfied with their marriage, the rate of stroke increased by more than 69%. The rate of death in general increased 9 stroke, but in an unhappy marriage. Research as deadly as smoking. This study shows that marriages can and do affect our health. Interesting, isn't it? Well, we did some research of our own, and this is what we found. In 2014, a study concluded that the marriage, any marriage, affects physical health as much as diet or physical activity. Meaning you can eat right, you can exercise right, but you'll not be healthy if your marriage is not a happy one. This is Holmes and Rahi's scale of stressful life events. And it says marital disruption is a major stress that differentiates those who will become ill from those who will not. Unhappy marriages are a reality today. There's no data on how many of them are under stress, because, of course, it's a personal issue and couples don't talk about it. But authors and journalists writing on this matter, on this issue, have cited personal or small-scale research. In a 2012 book, Dana Adam Shapiro claims that only 17% of couples in the world are content with their partners. Author Vicky Larson says 6 in every 10 couples are unhappy. 4 out of 10 have considered leaving their partner. But how many of these unhappy marriages really result in divorce? You'd be surprised. Not many. According to data published in 2019, the rate of divorce in India is only 1%. In Canada, 38%. Same in Australia. 42% in the UK, 46% in the United States, 55% in France, 51% in Russia, 21% in Brazil, only 3% in Chile, and 17% in South Africa. Very interesting numbers, but they do not tell the full story. Many psychologists are trying to figure out why couples stick it out despite being unhappy. Children, of course, are one of the prime reasons. But what does science say? Marital distress and conflict are associated with depression in children, poor social competence, health problems, poor academic performance. There are also financial, social, and personal reasons why people decide to stay in unhappy marriages. But why do marriages go south in the first place? American psychologist John Gottman wrote a book in 1994 called What Predicts Divorce? He mentions communication, or the lack of, and conflict escalation. There are also other reasons like lack of common interests. Today, technology has become a big threat to marriage, with people giving more time to their smartphones and Instagram than their partners. While the Israeli study focuses on men, what we often fail to acknowledge is how often women are forced to stay in unhappy marriages because they cannot afford to walk out. A 2019 PwC survey found that 65% of women say that money is their biggest stressor. In the UK, for example, even today, 1 in 3 women in relationships are financially dependent on their partners. Is there any way we can avoid unhappy marriages and the deaths they result in? Perhaps we can. For starters, we can let people be, not force them into marriage at all. Indian parents might want to take note. Number 2, decriminalize live-in relationships. There's nothing wrong with couples staying together before marriage and evaluating if they're compatible. Number 3, therapy, counseling. There's nothing wrong with these. They can save lives and relationships, marriages. Don't be afraid of reaching out for help if you think your marriage is going south, and don't judge couples who seek marriage counseling. Number 4, normalize and accept divorce. Till death do us part need not apply to unhappy marriages. People grow apart, it's human. If everything fails, the society must not be a hurdle in the path to couples wanting to move on. And the government must not dictate the terms of marriage and divorce. And here's a question, especially for those who watch Gravitas regularly. How often do you come across a Global Times article that criticizes China? Well, almost never. I will show you an exception. In February 2021, the Chinese mouthpiece wrote this article about how China's mandatory 30-day cooling-off period for couples seeking divorce can be unbearable for some. In China, a divorce application is cancelled if one of the partners changes his or her mind in this 30-day period. It may not be fair, says the Global Times. You see, marriages are not ominous. While studies show unhappy marriages can be fatal, research also shows that happy marriages are related to lower risk of mortality. Marriage is the most commonplace of human social relationship. It's an institution in itself, but it may not be for everyone or every couple, and accepting this may be a good idea. Now, climate change, we know, has made our lives a lot more difficult. The seas are rising, our summers are hotter, the cyclones are getting bigger. But for Australia, the problem is a bit more immediate. In Australia, they're dealing with animal invasions. Spiders are blanketing fields and roads with their webs, and millions of mice are cutting their way through farms. It may sound like some heavenly reckoning, but these animals are just reacting to the extreme weather. Here's a report.
Australia, home of the outback and untamed wilderness. An animal kingdom where humans are mere subjects. Nothing's a surprise down under. It's all about how active your imagination is. Don't believe us? See for yourself. Welcome to the state of Victoria, where the spiders have mounted an invasion. Scientists call it ballooning. Victoria saw some wild weather last week. Dozens of trees were toppled and parts of the state were flooded. Sensing danger, the spiders fled. They took refuge in these fields and road signs. Before long, they were weaving webs all over the place. And this is the result. A countryside blanketed by sleek, silvery coils. The spiders are long gone, but their webs remain. Elsewhere, there's another invasion underway. A deluge of mice gnawing and biting their way across eastern Australia. This week they reached here, the Wellington Correctional Centre. Authorities could see the disastrous headlines. Prison Break, the Mice Plague Edition. So they acted fast. Around 200 staff and 420 inmates have been shifted out. And now the cleanup begins. The rodents are hanging from the roof and burrowing into walls. Once they are cleared, the inmates will return. As far as threat assessment goes, the mice are far more dangerous. Millions of them have invaded homes and farms. At night, it's almost like the entire house has come alive. The footboards are squeaking. The attic is bustling, and there's certainly something running around under your bed. Not fun at all. The mice plague is almost exclusive to Australia. They come when heavy rains follows a long spell of drought. Locals say this plague is the worst they can remember, and experts predict it could get worse. Australia's seesaw climate is causing these strange events. Unusually long dry spells followed by biblical rains, hardly surprising that the animals are acting out. The government is using an acute poison to repel the mice, but how many rodents can you kill? And how long before the next wave of rodent road rash? Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
How many of you have made mistakes at work, goofed up, at least once. Maybe entered the wrong numbers in the final Excel sheet, sent the wrong presentation to the client, forgot your lines on air, I did, or deleted a D&D file at office. Well, you would be lying if you said never. We all make mistakes at work. They happen more often than we think. But somehow we never really talk about them. Sometimes not even to our closest ones. But achievements, they're pasted on LinkedIn, shared on Twitter, promoted on Facebook, written about in autobiographies. Think about it. We read about success stories of the world's top executives, how Tesla CEO Elon Musk made it big, how the secret to his success was his appetite for risk, how hard work is behind Satya Nadella's climb to Microsoft's top job, how Indra Nooyi played a major role in Johnson & Johnson before making it big in PepsiCo. These stories tell us that you cannot become successful overnight. But they don't tell us that the long journey is often milestoned with mistakes, that everyone, even the greatest of the great, goof up. Recently, an intern working with HBO Max made a mistake. He/she sent a blank test mail to all subscribers. It read, "This template is used by integration tests only." The subject said, "Integration test email 1." And this email was sent to 44 million plus addresses. 44 million. If you have an HBO Max subscription, you would have received it too. So people were surprised and many wondered, what was this email all about? HBO Max clarified, and this is what they said: "We mistakenly sent out an empty test email to a portion of our HBO Max mailing list this evening. We apologize for the inconvenience, and as the jokes pile in, yes, it was the intern, not really, and we are helping them through it." This post sparked an awe moment on social media. Netizens began sharing their embarrassing goof-up stories to make this intern feel better and to assure him or her that things will get better with time. Twitter, for one, was flooded with messages addressed to hashtag Dear Intern. And some of these comments are very interesting. One netizen wrote, "Dear intern, as a young lawyer, I proofread a legal brief and filed it with the court. I caught a typo and blindly used the global find and replace function. Pro tip, don't do that. My brief argued for the rights of the panties and not the parties, all 50 pages of it." A former Spotify engineer wrote, "Dear intern, I once globally took down Spotify. It almost happened twice. My team was awesome about it, and I'm still here. You managed to find something broken in the way integration tests are done. It's a good thing and will help improve things. Good luck." Monica Lewinsky, who was once a White House intern when she had an affair with the then US President Bill Clinton, tweeted in support of this intern. And this is what she said: "Dear intern, it gets better. P.S. Don't wear a beret for a while. K question mark." Well, why a beret? Because that's what she was wearing and standing next to Clinton, and that picture had gone viral when the scandal broke. So this is her advice. Another netizen wrote, "Dear intern, as on my very first day at my coding job, I deleted the company's entire Dropbox. I thought I'd be fired, but my boss restored the folder from a backup and told me that if I could have deleted everyone's work, that would have been on the company, not me." Here's another one. "Dear intern, as a very young copywriter, I once had to write a brochure about a prescription drug that reduces mortality in patients, but it turns out I actually wrote that it reduces mortality in patients and nobody caught it until 50,000 were printed." A principal engineer at Amazon Web Services tweeted, "It's okay. I dropped a prod database when I was a senior engineer. These things happen more often than you might think. Building good systems is about having resilience against human mistakes because we humans always make mistakes." Well, she's right. We always do make mistakes. We should also start talking about them, especially those on top, those in leadership positions. Share your stories. Tell the world how perfection is not human. Mistakes are. Shiny success stories can be a little intimidating. Stories of goof-ups are real, more relatable. They're also heartwarming. They give hope, and they can tell the world that mistakes do not end careers. They really don't, and they shouldn't. And trust me on this. So, dear intern, it's okay. On that note, we are wrapping the show, leaving you as always with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.